Most people treat retirement like a light switch. You work, and then one day you stop. But there's a third thing that most personal finance content skips entirely, and it's not early retirement in the dramatic, quit your job tomorrow sense. It's something quieter, more deliberate, and honestly, more achievable for most people watching this right now. Today, we're going to talk about 3 different exits from the traditional career path, not which one is best, but what each one actually costs you, what it gives you back, and how to know which one fits your life. Think of your financial life as a long train journey. Traditional retirement is the last stop. You ride the whole line, and when you reach the terminus, you get off. But there are other stops along the route. Some people get off early and walk the rest of the way at a slower pace, on their own terms, carrying less weight. Some people get off mid-journey, pick up different work entirely, and never reboard the original train. And some people stay on, but they stop worrying about the ride because the engine is running itself. Those are the 3 exits we're covering today. Let me tell you about a version of yourself 10 years from now. You're 41. You still have a job. But it's not the job, it's a job. One that pays enough to cover your rent, your groceries, your occasional weekend trip. Nothing extraordinary. But here's what's different. You haven't contributed a single dollar to your investment accounts in over 5 years, and your net worth is climbing anyway. That's Coast FIRE. Coast FIRE is not retirement. Let's be clear about that up front because misunderstanding this will lead you to bad math. Coast FIRE is a checkpoint, not a finish line. You've invested enough, early enough, that compound growth alone will carry your portfolio to a traditional retirement number by the time you reach a conventional retirement age, typically somewhere around 65. Once you hit that checkpoint, you no longer need to save for the future. You only need to earn enough to cover your present. Here's an example using round numbers. Assume a 30-year-old earning $80,000 a year. They spend aggressively for the first 5 years, living lean, channeling $2,000 a month into index funds. By age 35, they've accumulated roughly $160,000. At a historical average growth rate of 7%, that $160,000, with no additional contributions, grows to approximately $1.7 million by age 65. If their retirement spending is $68,000 a year, the 4% rule puts their target at $1.7 million. They're done saving. They've coasted. Now they can take any job that covers their bills. The barista gig, the bookshop, the part-time consulting arrangement, it doesn't matter. The train is running without them pushing it. Coast FIRE asks something specific of you in your early years. Sacrifice that is front-loaded and invisible to the outside world. You're not buying the car your peers are buying. You're not upgrading the apartment when your income grows. You're compressing your lifestyle intentionally during the decade when most people are expanding it. And that requires a level of clarity about what you're optimizing for that most people simply don't have at 27 or 28. The question is not whether Coast FIRE works mathematically. It does. The question is whether you're willing to delay lifestyle expansion in your early years in exchange for lifestyle optionality in your middle years. That is the actual trade. Coast FIRE makes the most sense if you want to stop worrying about the future, but you don't necessarily need to stop working. You want permission to take the lower-paying job that you actually want. You want to remove financial anxiety from your career decisions. You want to get off the high-pressure track without fully stepping away from work. If those statements resonate, Coast FIRE is worth modeling for your specific numbers. A different kind of person takes a different kind of exit. They're not optimizing for the day they stop working. They're optimizing for what work looks like while they do it. Digital Nomad FIRE is the strategy of designing your income to be location independent, and then using that flexibility to dramatically lower your cost of living. Here's what distinguishes Digital Nomad FIRE from simply working remotely. Remote work is about where your office is. Digital Nomad FIRE is about the intersection of 3 things: how you earn, where you live, and what it costs you to live there. The strategy works because of a simple asymmetry. Your income can remain anchored to a high-cost economy, US rates, European rates, Canadian rates, while your spending reflects a much lower-cost geography. That gap between what you earn and what you spend becomes your accelerant. Let's say you work as a software engineer earning $110,000 a year, remote, no office requirement. In San Francisco, that income gets consumed. Rent, taxes, cost of living. You're saving maybe 10% if you're disciplined. In Chiang Mai, Thailand, same income. Your monthly cost of living drops from roughly $5,500 to $1,800. That's a savings rate that goes from 10% to over 60% overnight. You haven't gotten a raise. You changed the denominator. The result, instead of needing 25 times a $60,000 a year lifestyle to retire, you may only need 25 times a $20,000 a year lifestyle. That's $500,000 instead of $1.5 million. That's a decade of difference for many people. Digital Nomad FIRE has a cost that doesn't show up on spreadsheets. Continuity. You are constantly managing logistics, time zones, visas, banking, health coverage, and the friction of building any kind of local routine only to dismantle it again. Relationships become complicated. Friendships require effort to maintain across distances. Building community takes longer when you're rarely in one place long enough to become a regular. And there's something else. A lot of people who start this path discover, around year 2 or 3, that the freedom they were seeking was never actually about geography. It was about autonomy. And sometimes autonomy is achievable without the flight. That realization either grounds them in a new city they genuinely love, or sends them back home with a clearer sense of what they actually wanted. Neither outcome is wrong. Digital Nomad FIRE is not a retirement strategy in the conventional sense. It's a life design strategy with financial consequences. It works best if you have income that is genuinely decoupled from location, software engineering, consulting, content creation, design, remote employment. It works best if your spending is primarily on experiences rather than possessions. And it works best if you're honest with yourself about whether the lifestyle itself appeals to you, separate from the financial math. Then there's the original path. The one that doesn't require you to move abroad or change careers or accept a lower salary. It requires something different, time, and discipline applied consistently across it. Traditional FIRE is built on one research-backed principle, the 4% rule. In the early 1990s, financial researcher William Bengen analyzed decades of market data, including the worst stretches the market has ever seen, and found that a portfolio withdrawn at 4% annually had historically sustained itself indefinitely. That means multiply your desired annual spending by 25. That number is your target. Take someone earning $90,000 a year. Their take-home after taxes is roughly $67,000. They live on $40,000 a year and invest $27,000. At a 7% average annual return, they reach a $1 million portfolio in approximately 19 years. At 4% withdrawal, that covers their $40,000 annual spending. They're financially independent. 19 years is not fast, but it is real, and it is replicable, and the variables are entirely within their control: savings rate, expenses, investment returns, no visa applications, no geographic arbitrage, no business to build, just a consistent, patient accumulation of wealth in low-cost index funds. Traditional FIRE asks you to be patient during years when patience is hardest. Your 30s and early 40s are often the most expensive years of your life if you're building a household, having children, buying a home. FIRE requires you to compress spending exactly when life is trying to expand it. There's another cost that's rarely named directly. The years you're accumulating are not years in suspension. Your life is happening in them. The person who hits FIRE at 47 spent their 30s and early 40s somewhere doing something with someone. The question is not just whether you can accumulate the number. The question is what you're doing with the years it takes to get there. That's worth thinking about before you commit to the path. Traditional FIRE is the most accessible of the 3 strategies in terms of its requirements. You don't need to build a business. You don't need to relocate. You need to earn, spend less than you earn, and invest the difference into low-cost, broadly diversified index funds consistently for a long time. If your income is stable, your lifestyle preferences are flexible, and you're genuinely willing to defer spending for a decade or more, traditional FIRE is the most reliable path to complete financial independence. Here's what I want you to take from this. These 3 strategies are not in competition. They're not better or worse than each other in the abstract. They are different answers to different versions of the same question. What do you want your life to look like, and what are you willing to trade to get there? Coast FIRE trades early lifestyle expansion for middle year flexibility. Digital Nomad FIRE trades continuity and roots for present tense freedom. Traditional FIRE trades time and deferred spending for total independence. None of them are free. None of them are wrong. The one that fits you is the one that matches what you actually want, not what the math optimizes for in isolation. If you're not sure which one that is yet, that's fine. Start by knowing your number. Know what your current annual spending looks like. Know what lifestyle you actually want in retirement. Know what your savings rate is today. Those 3 things will tell you more than any strategy label ever could. If you found this useful, consider subscribing. There's more on the way. See you in the next one.